We have people coming in from everywhere. Everyone's saying where they're from. That's fantastic. We've got the UK, Cologne, Alicante, Italy. Everyone is represented. That's fantastic. And Brussels as well. Sunny Brussels today. So I think we can kick off this webinar now. Good morning and welcome everyone to the 6th International Breakfast Meeting. My name is Philip Eastel and I'm the Secretary General of European Boating Industry. European Boating Industry, for those who do not know, is the voice and association of the recreational boating industry in Europe. Most of you will know that this event is usually held at Boot Düsseldorf, but unfortunately due to the ongoing pandemic, the trade show had to be cancelled and we cannot be there. But I'm overall more delighted that together with Boot Düsseldorf and our partner Petros Michalidakis, we were able to organize this event online. And Petros, thank you very much to you and your team for your support. The benefit of this digital event is that we don't have to start at 8:30 as we normally do, but the bad side is that also we cannot serve you any breakfast. But I do hope that everyone has a cup of coffee or a cup of tea in front of them to be ready for this webinar. We have a great program for you today. What we want to talk about is the sort of the reboot of tourism and recreation that we are seeing happening all around us. And to do that, we have three parts. We have a political part where we have Commissioner Sinkevicius and MEP Ismail Ertug. And we're very honored to have you here, Mr. Ertug, where we will look at the political dimension. And this is then followed by the market intelligence part, where we will hear about a study on the impact of COVID-19 on our industry, and from the European Travel Commission on the wider travel and tourism trends. We will then have a keynote speech from the Benetton Group and some final remarks from our president. We do have a Q&A planned at the end to allow you to ask audio questions that will come up during this webinar. But please already put them into the Q&A function that you have here on Zoom in front of you, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as possible. Before kicking off the event, I would like to just very briefly mention a few housekeeping rules. Just for your information, this event is being streamed on YouTube and will also be shared and recorded afterwards. For any technical questions, please write them into the chat and my colleagues, Roberto and Isla, will help you with those. If you are on social media and you would like to post about this event, please use the hashtag IBM2021. But that's all from me, and without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker to welcome us all today. That is Petros Michalidakis, the director of Boot Düsseldorf, who normally would welcome us in person and be a great host. But Petros, it's a pleasure to have you here with us virtually. So with that, over to you, to Düsseldorf, and to you, Petros. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. From my side, also a wonderful good morning to the business community and all friends of the boating and water sports industry from Düsseldorf. I would like to welcome you to this year's International Breakfast Meeting, which this time, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, has to take place via Zoom. But I would like to welcome you in a positive way and telling you that we are more than confident that in January 2022, we will meet again in person here in Düsseldorf with a breakfast, like you said, dear Philip, and a good coffee, which we are all used to when you are here in Düsseldorf. In the meantime, the business is developing, unfortunately, in both directions. We would all like to have, let's say, only positive results from the boating and water sports business, but boat builders and refitters are reporting excellent numbers, but the segments connected to travels, they are, let's say, they are dealing with mixed emotions. Some of them, like the diving industry, they have huge problems, and the charter companies also, depending on how a region can open due to COVID-19. But both are very much connected with the success of the boating industry, and so are all other segments like surfing, kiting, and all the other sports people are doing when they are on a boat or on the coast. So what's our target for Boot Düsseldorf 2022? Of course, to create, again, a platform where business meets the demand, where business people can talk to their suppliers or find new products, but also where boating people can again realize their dream about being on the water or near the water. This is what we want to do. That's why we again use our motto, Reboot Your Business at Boat Düsseldorf 2022. And we are very confident to be successful because people, and this is something we know due to the talks and the survey, not only we, but also others are doing, people are desperate. They want to go for boating. They want to do their sport. They want to go for diving. And this is something we are waiting for, to show them the possibilities they have together with the companies and the exhibitors we have here at Boat Düsseldorf. I can tell you already from now that we are not only will show the wide range of boating, of new boats and boating opportunities, let's say, like you are used when coming to Düsseldorf. But we will also go into two new segments. One is, of course, the sustainability matter, new propulsion systems and engines for the propulsion of boats, which we had already here. But what we will try to create, we will create a forum presenting the companies who are developing the new kind, let's say, of propulsion systems. And the second segment, which are very interesting, is the coastal tourism. The coastal tourism is connected very much to our industry. The demands of the people are changing. We did already in 2018 a survey regarding the coastal tourism and the demand of charter users, charter boat users during the week or the 2 weeks of charter. And we see that what everybody wants to have, or more and more people, is to have a wide range of services when they're going on a boat. All this is connected into coastal tourism, and we will present regions and cities and, of course, service companies providing coastal tourism opportunities for the users. I think this will also help the industry to grow into new segments and new points in the sales market. We are very confident that boating will be also growing in the next years. Specialists from surveys and also our exhibitors are talking about 4% per year until 2027. Let's see how it will work. We will be here to serve the industry. And I would also like to thank you, Philip, your team, the members of EBI, for the beautiful and wonderful cooperation we have. And yeah, I'd like to welcome you next year in person at Boat Düsseldorf. And I wish you until then successful business, good talks, and good develop. Stay healthy, and all the best for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Petros. It's a pleasure to hear from you always, but even more to hear about the plans you have for next year. And I think just hearing our plans is already very exciting, but I think that's something really to look forward to. So thank you very much, Petros. Our second speaker is Virginia Sinkevičius, who's the European Commissioner for Environment, Ocean and Fisheries. He has been the Commissioner since 2019, but even before coming to Brussels, he was a member of the Lithuanian Parliament and also Lithuanian Minister of Economy and Innovation up until 2019. The Commissioner will give an introduction about the blue economy and tourism and the EU's policy in this area. Unfortunately, he cannot be with us today due to other commitments, but he's very kindly prepared a video message in advance that we will play now. So we go by video message. Over to you, Commissioner, and let's hope that it works.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a pleasure to address you today at your international breakfast meeting. First of all, I would like to express my solidarity. I know that your sector, your companies and staff are all suffering because of the pandemic for more than a year now. The crisis is unprecedented for all of us. And although the Commission and Member States have intervened quickly to support companies in need, No support package can fully compensate for a season without tourism and leisure activities, especially in Europe, the cradle of tourism as we know it. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. Thanks to the EU vaccination strategy and efforts made across the EU, we expect that member states will gradually open up again for tourists in the coming months. From the side of the Commission, we are fully mobilized to foster this restart. For example, we are working with member states and stakeholders to develop a European agenda for tourism, with a shared long-term roadmap towards a sustainable, innovative and resilient European tourism ecosystem. We are also developing a new sustainable blue economy strategy to be adopted next month, which will firmly embed the blue economy in the European Green Deal. The Green Deal is our roadmap towards a better future for Europe, and it focuses our policies and support on two things. First, we want to promote carbon-neutral, circular, responsible and innovative economic activities. This is the only way forward. We need to speed up in all countries, regions and sea basins. It is also a unique business opportunity for sectors such as yours. Second, we want to make sure that every aspect of the recovery shifts the focus from bottom-line driven exploitation to sustainable use and conservation. We have to stop talking about trade-offs between economy and environment. A trade-off, by definition, is a zero-sum game. There is no real growth in it. The Green Deal, on the contrary, is all about growth, economic, environmental and social growth. This is especially true for coastal and maritime tourism. Few sectors rely so heavily on the beauty of an unspoiled, healthy environment. Yet we also know that the sector has its challenges. Therefore, we need to look at the entire value chain, at business and revenue models, at quality, health and safety, and not in the least at the environmental impact. The recreational boating industry will have an essential role to play to help us build back better. One way to do so could be to further develop and embrace the opportunities of nature-based tourism. In the EU biodiversity strategy, we spelled out our ambition to protect 30% of the marine environment by 2030. Marine protected areas and marine biodiversity can bring real value to the sector nautical tourism. The key word in all of this is cooperation. Cooperation in particular between the public and private sector. The Commission is already working together with member states and private sector experts to promote ports as hubs for a sustainable blue economy. We will soon launch a pilot project in the Atlantic area, in which we will address issues such as digitalization, infrastructure for offshore renewables, and protecting our oceans with activities in and around the ports. We are also looking into the initiatives of some member states and the European boating industry to promote the recycling of leisure boats and find synergies between the recycling of wind turbine blades, which are made of a similar material. Cooperation is also key among regions, and this we have seen, for example, in the EMFF, Nautical Routes for Europe call, where cooperation between coastal regions has led to successful cross-border tourism projects. Similarly, I believe that cooperation between marinas can help boost the development of new green technologies and circular business model. This could be integrated into smart specialization strategies for interregional projects under the cohesion policy. To conclude, I'm confident that together we can relaunch a stronger coastal and maritime tourism ecosystem. Protecting businesses and jobs is at the heart of the EU's recovery agenda. And the only way to do so is to rebuild our economy, including your sector, in a sustainable and resilient way. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Commissioner for sending us that video message. It was really great to hear about some of the upcoming initiatives that the European Commission is planning, like the Tourism Agenda 2050 and the Sustainable Blue Economy Strategy. And essentially, it was great to hear that the Commissioner sees an important role for our sector in building back better after the pandemic. So thank you very much also to the Commissioner for that. Now, sticking with the political side, we would like to introduce our third speaker, which is a member of the European Parliament, Ismail Ertürk, who's been a member of the European Parliament since 2009 for the German Social Democrats, He's a member of the Transport and Tourism Committee and also a substitute member in the Industry Research and Energy Committee, and also a vice president of the Socialists and Democrats group in the European Parliament. And lastly, he has told me that he's a keen fan of water sports. So I cannot think of anyone better to give us some insight into how the European Parliament sees our sector and the sector of transport, tourism and travel developing. Mr. Ertug, thank you very much for your time to be here. We're honored to have you here with us. So now the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Yes, good morning to everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation, Philip, and you're fully right. I'm really a fan of water and water sports, so I like it. That's the main issue. When it comes to the European policy, thank you to the Commissioner as well. He described from his perspective what can be done. I would like to do it as a member of the European Parliament, as the representative of 450 million people all around the 27 member states in the European Union. So as you can imagine, the European Commission has their view, and we as the representatives of the people, we have our own one. And we did so many things in the last years, even knowing the fact that we don't have the competence to do a fixed transport tourism policy within the European Union. But what I want to share with you is, first of all, the facts. Fact is that the European Union is the world's number one tourism destination. That's for sure. If you look to the figures, you see clearly that Europe is number one. But we have also main challenges in front of us, and these challenges are, I would like to put them into 4 columns. First main challenge is the security and safety. I think this goes without saying. When it comes to environment, political and social security, we have clear main challenges in front of us in terms of security and safety. Second, we have also the challenge of the economic competitiveness. We have the situation in the European Union, in particular, most of our tourism is linked to seasonality, and we have also regulatory and administrative burdens. We have in different member states different kinds of taxation, for example, tourism-related taxation and so on. So this is the second one. I would like to lead over to the third one, the third main challenge, which is technological in my eyes. We have to keep up to date with the IT developments caused by the globalization of information. This is absolutely key and will be key in the future. And the final one, the fourth main challenge, is the markets and the competition, the growing demand for customized experiences. So these are the challenges. And then lead over, I know we are in the midst of a pandemic and the last year was the worst ever, but, and I would like to say that clearly and emphasize it, this is also a big chance for the tourism policy. In the past, tourism policy was, was a kind of national competence. The member state, they did what they want. Yeah, they have, they made it this way and the other one made it this way. So this is maybe a chance of a kind of harmonization on European level, and this will bring the European Union, push the European Union into a situation of being a harmonized destination for people, even in the European Union, also from abroad. And when we come to the priorities for action, on my list, I would like to categorize them into 5. First, the increasing of the tourism demand. That should be one of our main issues and main challenge, main action fields for domestic tourism and also from people from abroad, as I said. And also we have to gain more tourist trust. In particular, within the pandemic, we've seen last year in the summer season that the people, they would love to travel, but they were really disillusionized and they were not able to access if this is feasible or not. Therefore, I think we need a tourist trust. I made a proposal by myself last year, and we have spoken about that, Mr. Eastil and dear Philip. I proposed the European tourism certificate, and I pushed to an initiative report out of the European Parliament where we put that in. We just changed the name. We named it then, let me look, a European hygiene certification seal. So as I said from the beginning on, I don't care about the name. The mechanism behind must be there and must be positive. The second priority for action is the improving the range of tourism products and services on offer. This is also important in order to be unique around the globe. Third, enhancing the tourism quality, sustainability, accessibility, and the skills, and not to forget huge importance, the use of information and communication technologies. We have other opportunities today as we had in the past, and we have to use it. We have a big bunch of data, and this data has to be used in a good way and positive way. Fourth, as I said, promotion. We have to promote Europe as a unique destination, as I said, because we can combine almost everything. We have from the north to the south, from the east to the west, different offers all around the world. We can live, I guess, summer, autumn, spring, and winter in one season, and we should use this also as one of our big added values. And the fifth priority for action field is the mainstreaming tourism in other EU policies. Tourism is always positive. Tourism gives us gives us some pictures in our brain. That does mean good life, good food, travel, summer, season, sea, as I said, sports, and so on. But we have to also acknowledge the fact that tourism is a very vulnerable sector. One wrong decision by the foreign politicians affecting our tourism at all. And mainstreaming does mean also we have to try to find, as I said, once again, a harmonization also on the tax policies. Different member states acted differently, but my proposal would be, in the time of the pandemic, we should have a common tax policy, even if it's not within the European treaties, but we should try at least to convince the member states to go along with a one and harmonized tax policy. That could be the decrease of the added value tax or some other issues. What I want to raise, I think, is clear. This is one field of priority for action. What is the view as parliamentarian for the future on EU tourism? And we am here for 12 years now. And in the beginning, 2009, tourism, to be honest, was not really a main issue of the European Parliament. The European Commission, they didn't come with some proposals, just one, maybe two in one period, and mostly communication, which are not binding. And in the meantime, we've seen that the EU travel has to be facilitated. That does mean we need multiple entry visas. When I'm not wrong, I once read an article or a study which said we lose per year annually 60 billion euro just because of our visa policy. What we also need is a clear and fast online procedures. This is absolutely clear. We are talking about this not only in transport, means also in tourism, the issue of multimodal ticketing. We need it, and I'm sure that would facilitate EU travel tremendously. Second, not to forget the needs of our planet, the European Green Deal. Under this umbrella, we have to do our utmost to have a resource-efficient transport and travel within the European Union, and we have to use the environmental friendly technologies. And I mentioned a few minutes ago the digital and the data part of tourism. We have an EU digital strategy also, and what we need there in terms of tourism is, first of all, a seamless payment possibility. Maybe we have some to a certain extent, but that should be harmonized as well. And what we not to forget, we need, I'm sure at least, it's not Parliament's position, to be honest, I have to underline it, but it's my firm belief, we need alternative payment models. And I know there are some currencies, call it cryptocurrencies or something like that, that could facilitate and that could give the trust for internet for payment for the consumers. And I'm sure the alternative payment models will be of crucial importance as well. And as always, the use of real data, real-time data could facilitate. We can learn from the transport policy and the transport in particular in dense populated areas, in urban mobility. You see, you need some kind of use of data in a way that you can reroute the flows of the transport and the traffic. And this could be done also in transport as well, using the real-time data for rerouting of the flows of tourists. When we talk about the data policy, it goes for sure. And as you said, I'm a social democrat, and we really take care of the respect. We respect the consumers' rights and the data, that goes for sure. And finally, not to forget, all this is not possible without money. And we have now the unique situation in the European Union having real much money as before, as we used in the past. We have the so-called Recovery and Resilience Facility. In this budget, we have 672.5 billion euro for the member states. It sounds a big amount of money, which is for sure a big amount, but when you compare it with 27 member states for the next 7 years, it's also much money, but we should see that there are some possibilities, but the money has to be invested in a good way. And tourism, I'm sure, will be one of the best investments ever, what we can do for the next 7 years. When you see that people we're employing 12 million people in this sector, and our inbound tourism contributes to 356 billion euro annual revenue to the European economy. That shows which leverage lays there, and therefore I would really appreciate if the member states use money also for the tourism sector in that way, what I tried to describe in the last 10 minutes. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks very much for having invited me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Erdbrück. There's a lot of what you said that I would love to comment on, but given the short amount of time, I just wanted to thank you for your commitment to the tourism sector, both before this pandemic and also since this pandemic has started. And just to pick out 3 points of what you said, the tourism health certificate or hygiene certificate, whatever it may end up being called, it's really fantastic to see this now coming into play and also including our sector. And we understand that should be finalized by the end of May. So that's really fantastic to hear. Also, what you said about VAT, I think it comes as no surprise that as an industry association, we very much support that. Reduced VAT rates is something important, and to have a harmonized approach for the tourism sector is important. And also those can really be useful to help the tourism sector restart and recover in the next years. And certainly the recovery fund, something we're looking at as well, of course, and is very important in all member states now to really recover and as also the Commissioner said earlier, build back better. So all of that, for all of your work, thank you very much, and also thank you for participating here today. Thank you, Mr. Erdbrück. So after this political part, we want to now move into the market intelligence part. And for that, we have 2 excellent speakers, and that's Amelie César and Natascha Zwenke. who recently graduated in international tourism management from the Jade University in Wilhelmshaven, which, for those of you who are not so accustomed to German geography, is right on the German North Sea coast. Together with both Düsseldorf and BVWW, our German member, we entrusted them to lead a study on the impact of COVID-19 on our industry. I'm really delighted to say that we had almost 300 companies and individual experts who contributed to that study. So we're really excited to hear the results now. I have to say for EBI, this is also sort of a first time that we did this sort of study. So we are really proud to see it presented today. But before I reveal everything that you wanted to say, Amelie and Natasha, I will hand over to you and please lead us and tell us what you have found in your study.
Yes, thank you, Philip, for the nice introduction. I will show you my presentation now. You should see it. Perfect. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you again, Philip, for the invitation for you to speak here today. As you said, I am Emily Caesar, and on the other window, you can see my friend and colleague, Natascha Zwenke.
Good morning.
We are very happy to be able to present you today our results of our study about the impact of COVID-19 on the European boating industry. As Philip said, it was realized in cooperation with the EBI, the German Leisure Marine Federation, the BVWW, and Boot Düsseldorf. At first, I will describe shortly our approach to the study, and then I will show you the impact of COVID on the industry, especially on revenues and employment. Natascha will then take over the third part of the presentation and talk about the future of boating and the boating industry. We used the survey tool EFS Survey by the company Questback to generate our survey in autumn last year. And all in all, 279 companies from 13 European countries answered the survey. The results give a representative view of the industry, since 96% of the responding companies are small to medium enterprises. You will find further information in the report, which will be published by the EBI later on. For example, you will find detailed information about the different countries and also different industry sectors. And before I start with the presentation, I would also like to thank the experts we were able to interview during our research. Thanks to their help, we were able to get a deeper insight of the boating industry, which was really helpful. Okay, now I would like to start with the impact of COVID on the revenues and the employment. During the last summer, we felt a real appetite for the practice of nautical activities as a space of freedom and security. These are the words of Maud Dugout, Secretary General of the French Federation on the Nautical Industry. The results of our study reflect the mentioned words. Nevertheless, we all felt the negative consequences of the remaining crisis. The feedback that we obtained concerning your difficulties during the crisis was coherent. The results are summarized in the word cloud that you can see here on your screen. The size of the words indicates the amount of mentions. As you can see, the main issues were the short-term business closures, problems with the supply chains, and delivery challenges. The tourism sector here especially suffered from a lower demand than other sectors. On this slide, you can see the estimated impact on the company's revenues in 2020 comparing to 2019 figures. The position of the bars shows the importance of the increase or the decrease. For example, 25% of the responders classified their decrease of their revenues between 0 and 20%. That you can see on the first red bar here. As you may have noticed, all the red bars show the percentages of companies which saw their revenues decline. This concerns half of the responding companies. 4% of them have been hit the hardest, with a decline by over 80%. Here, especially, the tourism sector suffered. Despite the crisis, a total of 35% of companies saw their revenues increase, which represents more than a third of the responders. This is displayed in the green bar section you can see above. In the case of the distribution sector, the increase was mainly caused by a higher demand. In between the red and the green bars, the blue indicates the percentage of companies which didn't notice a change in their revenues at all. Here, the fact that 11% saw no movement in their figures is providing a very good sign for the industry. It has also to be pointed out that COVID-19 led to decreasing as well as increasing revenues in all segments of activities in the boating industry. All in all, the average of the impact of COVID-19 on the revenues amounts to a decrease of 10%. Another economical impact of COVID-19 concerns the employment. This chart shows the same structure as the previous one, but the results of the increase or decrease are summed up here. As you can see, 74% of the responders indicated no change or increasing numbers of employees in their companies. These results might be influenced by the by the system of short-time employment, which has been set up in many European countries. Even though a quarter of companies have already had to lay off employees, the impact of COVID-19 on employment might only show in the long term. Employees of companies active in charter have been hit the hardest. In this industry field, companies had to lay off up to 60% of their employees. And now Natasha will take over.
Previously, Amelie showed you the effects of COVID for the pandemic year 2020. And now I want to bring your attention to the future of the boating industry. I think that the growing interest in water sports will be beneficial in the long term. However, companies will be more cautious about new investments. As you can see, Mr. Buck, Secretary General of Polboat, mentioned the fact that investments are likely to be postponed due to COVID-19. In our study, we proposed 7 different statements about the long-term impact of COVID-19. You can see the 7 statements here on your screen. We asked the responders to assess these statements. The graph represents the number of answers. For example, 175 responders agreed that investments are being postponed. This shows that the majority of the responding companies share the opinion of Mr. Buck. It is possible that there's a connection to the decreasing investment capacity of companies, and this is the 5th statement here. Furthermore, there is an agreement with over 60% that the short-term interest in boating is growing. The positive effect concerning the long term was rated with 50%. This shows us that COVID-19 leads to a change in consumer behavior, which is positive for the industry. Even though a large part of companies noticed a focus on digitalization, the subject of environmental sustainability wasn't as crucial. Compared to the previous statements, the responders disagreed mostly with a change in concerning their product range. It's here the last statement. These statements can be interpreted as a change of companies' behavior. Despite the financial challenges the industry is facing, your assessments show that COVID-19 also leads to positive effects. In general, the numbers are a sign of change in the industry. And now I would like to remind you that earlier in our presentation, Amelie talked about the impact of COVID-19 on revenues. The pie chart on the left side shows that 53% of the companies indicated a decrease in their revenues, as Amelie showed before. These companies were asked about their opinion concerning the recovery time. The blue pie chart gives an overview about the expected period for a return of revenues to pre-crisis figures of 2019. 17 of the companies worry that the recovery time will take more than 2 years. Nevertheless, 2/3 of companies expect a recovery time between 1 and 2 years, and this is a good sign for the whole industry. Despite the optimism, our study clearly shows that there are challenges and opportunities. To overcome the challenges and to benefit from the opportunities, the industry needs support of the national governments and the European policymakers. Therefore, the four displayed topics have to be tackled. The companies indicated that financial support is crucial. Here, the governments should facilitate the access to financial aids. Another important aspect concerns a clarified communication of the governments and authorities. Legal and health regulations differ in each country, which makes an overview difficult to get. The industry needs a common database showing the different regulations in each country, and this should be set up by the governments. Furthermore, there is a need for promoting voting as a safe activity. Governments should emphasize this aspect of safety. Since uncertainty represents a major challenge in the industry, governments need also to introduce a long-term recovery plan. Now we want to look at the outlook for 2021, which is shown in this chart. 23% see the outlook for the voting industry as poor or very poor. It's the red bar section here, the red part. At the same time, 31% indicated a neutral opinion despite the current challenges, which is a good sign. Over a third of companies shared an optimistic view for the future. And finally, the main result of our study is that the estimated outlook for the European voting industry is rather positive. Still, the constant change and uncertainty are challenges that have to be overcome. The water sports industry in Europe is very well positioned, and I believe that growth will be very strong in the next few years. This statement of Carsten Stahlhut, who is the Secretary General of the German Leisure Marine Federation, confirms and illustrates the results of our study. With these positive words, we would like to complete this presentation, and thank you for your attention. If you have further questions, you can contact the EBI or Amelie and me, or ask us in the Q&A after the other presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natasha and Amelie. Really interesting to hear. As a cliffhanger for everyone who's already asked that question, we will publish the study in 1 week's time on the 27th of April. It will be available on our website then, and we'll also communicate about it at that time. I think Amelie and Natasha, what you said really links very well to what also Mr. Ertug and also the Commissioner, St. Richard, has been saying, the need to promote voting as a safe activity and all the work that can be done at policy level about that, but also the need for a long-term recovery plan to identify what can really be the growth factors in the next year. So all of that is really interesting. I think a lot to expand on, and probably one webinar would be enough to just discuss your study. But thank you very much for your work presenting this, but also for the great work you've done in the last couple of months in preparing the study. It's really fantastic. So thank you very much, Natasha and Amelie. But now, after having heard the impact of COVID-19 on our industry and some initial trends, we would like to zoom out a bit and hear how this links with the wider travel and tourism sector. And to do that, we have the pleasure of welcoming Lublena Dimova from the European Travel Commission. The European Travel Commission is the Association of National Tourism Destination Organizations and also runs the Visit Europe brand. Lublena is part of their research and development team and has put together some really interesting slides on the wider trends in travel and tourism. And Lublena, we look forward to hearing how this all links together and what it means for our sector. So Lublena, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen? Yeah, I guess yes. Everything is fine. Thank you, Philip, for the opportunity to be here and sharing with all of you some of the information that we have. As you already mentioned, the European Travel Commission is an association representing national tourism organizations. And in a nutshell, our mission is to strengthen the sustainable development of tourism. And we do that by working in several areas, including building up partnerships, including advocating the importance of tourism for the economic sector in Europe, promoting Europe as a tourism destination in key long-haul source markets, and also generating a market intelligence that's needed more than ever right now. I would like to start first with a little retrospection of what happened last year, and then I will continue to the days today, so everyone can actually make their own conclusion on whether we could use post-pandemic world or post-pandemic tourism yet, or we cannot. So starting with the most striking figure of more than 70% decline in virtually all world regions, 2020 was declared the worst year of international tourism. And obviously Europe was not an exception to this trend. And although governments put a lot of effort in supporting the industry, all European destinations reported enormous declines, as you can see here, ranging from 51% to 85%, with those destinations that were most reliant on international demand or on the tourism industry as a sector of the GDP, they were hit the worst. And of course, the main reason for that were the rigid restrictions that were needed for most of the year, which first of all pressed the intra-European travel demand, which was already a very dramatic change, because if we look at markets like Germany, the Netherlands, Italy, Spain, those markets together are generating a huge portion of all arrivals to European countries. So what I'm trying to explain here is that if we didn't have the intra-European borders closed, we could have been self-sufficient for a certain period of time, even if our external borders were closed. At the same time, we had a huge plunge in tourist arrivals from overseas markets. And just to give you an idea, the introduction of the travel bans between the US and Europe resulted in greater than 70% drop of US arrivals to European countries, while the shutting down of travel between China and Europe led to declines in Chinese arrivals ranging between 72 and 97%. And just to open a bracket here, these two markets, US and China, travelers from these markets are being classified as the top spenders when it comes to tourism and recreational activities. And these are just two of the key overseas markets. Now, moving to 2021, we started the year with a renewed hope for travel recovery, for easing rigid restrictions. But this hope has not yet borne fruit. And the truth is that in the first months of the year, many countries actually found themselves in a similar situation as they were at the end of last year. And just to give you an example here about the magnitude of the declines that the tourism industry experiences, I've been recently listening to a speech given by Luis Araujo, who's actually the president of Turismo de Portugal, one of the most progressive national tourism organizations and destinations across Europe, who's also president of the European Travel Commission. And he explained that with the figures that Portugal recorded in January 2021, the tourism industry went 45 years back to the level of tourism activity that was recorded in 1975. So this is a huge decline, and it also provokes our thoughts that we actually don't need to only attract visitors again. We need to regain confidence in the tourism industry and the confidence of investors in tourism. Now, on the positive side, despite the rocky start of the EU vaccine campaign, now the speed of the vaccine rollout is accelerating. The distribution has been smoothening. There are almost no issues, but there are still some issues in supply, but they're being ironed out. And the European countries are now following the UK. And most of them are on the road of vaccinating 70% of their population by the end of 2021, which basically spurs some hope for some recovery in the tourism industry. But this is, of course, dependent on on whether countries will be able to keep up with the tempo on vaccinating, and so on. And now, so I don't only talk about figures, I would like to share a few thoughts with you. These are some humble observations that I have. I'm not a policy maker, of course, but I'm actually following trends, reading a lot. So I think these kind of areas deserve the attention. And the first one is that actually people want to travel. They want to visit another neighborhood. They may want to visit another city or another country, but this will not be enough soon. People will be longing for overseas trips. And at the moment, there is no pragmatic plan in place, especially for long-haul source markets, to visit Europe, for instance. The American tourism trade industry is now trying to find ways. There are many Americans are wanting to visit Europe this year, and although they are in a possession of health credentials and passports, they still cannot come here because there is no harmonized approach. And in fact, if we don't hurry up, they will be looking for other opportunities to visit other countries. Another important thing is that although the European Union is actually represents a great idea, what the member states showed over the last year is that when it comes to COVID, we were not really a Europe anymore. We were 27 individual states, putting in place our different approaches and restrictions, and that was a little bit frustrating for the tourism industry, I would say, because the tourism industry is very unified around the same goals, but didn't have enough voice over political decisions. What the European Union is now doing with the green certification implementation, it's actually great, and we could be very proud of it, because such kind of procedures are usually taking between 1 and 2 years. And now we may be able to implement it in just several months. But still, we should not forget the messy situation we were in over the past year. Another important thing is that prioritizing citizens' health does not mean leaving behind tourism industry or any other service industry. It means rather an extending of scientific knowledge into practical inputs, and essentially building bridges between health and tourism, between health and other industry. And just to give you an example again here, a few months ago, the European Center for Disease Control released a study that actually found out that travelers are less risky for the destinations because the transmitting rate among travelers is much lower than the transmitting rates among local communities. And then the question is, why are destinations staying empty instead of welcoming more tourists? And I'm not saying that travel is no risk. I'm just saying that we need more investment in this kind of directions. Instead of focusing in short-term solutions, we need to see the big picture and how we can move forward, because blind restrictions are not the path forward for sure. And I hope we all learned that over the past month. And another thing that I find particularly important is that we have to work on the regaining the competitive image of traveling to and within Europe, because while each country in Europe has its own culture, its own cuisine and natural facilities, landscape, it's the combination of countries that actually creates the competitive advantage. And this is especially true for long-haul travelers, because they see Europe as a rich bouquet of experiences and history. And we don't want to change this image to a region divided into safe and not safe countries. This would actually be horrific. And we really need to work in that direction. And the other very, very strong competitive advantages that other world regions do not have is the connectivity. So it's like no other region in the world. Europe is actually providing this image of traveling without borders, spontaneous country hopping. People cannot do that anywhere else. And now we should also take into account this when we are developing future strategies, because we don't want to turn into region a place with just set travel corridors. And these are some points that I wanted to raise. And then, of course, whatever we talk, it always comes to travelers as well. So let's see what they think about the next months. I'll present some results from our latest wave of research that monitors the travel sentiment among frequent European travelers. So the good news for the moment is that Europeans are being more optimistic about traveling as a result of the vaccine rollout. Nearly half of them feel more confident now to think about travel, although there is also another 50% that are either neutral or disagree with this statement, which is normal at the moment. But on the positive side, some of the biggest markets are actually the most positive ones. Looking at the holistic picture, we are seeing an improving sentiment among Europeans, and now more than 1 in 2 Europeans are planning to travel by the end of August. And as you can see, this is a particularly positive trend since last autumn, when we had the so-called second wave of lockdowns. The positive results at the moment, it cannot be explained with just one factor. It's a combination of factors. It's people wanting to fight with the lockdown fatigue, with also the summer months approaching, or people just, some of them are just very tired of this and just want to start traveling to forget about the whole situation. At the moment, the biggest desire among Europeans is to visit another European country. And there is also a good percent of people who are still planning to visit domestic destinations. This is usually what we see in the results, more typical for people who want to travel with their families. And as you can see here, only a few Europeans are brave enough to actually organize some trips outside of Europe. But we'll see how this trend evolves with the mechanisms we have in place over the next month. When it comes to exact timing of a trip, what we could say is that the majority of Europeans are not planning to travel earlier than May. And when it comes to most visible period, these are the months July and August, which are the typical summer months in Europe. This could also explain to a certain extent the preferences for type of holidays. As you can see here, sun and beach and coast and sea type of trips are actually the preferred option for 31% of the Europeans. And just to explain here why we split these two options, it's because destinations like Holland, like Denmark, the Baltic countries are not often associated with sun and beach vacations, but they're still offering coast and sea experiences, and we didn't want to miss out on this segment. So yeah, it's basically, here we have sun and beach trips to destinations like Greece or the typical Spain, Italy summer activity destinations, and the coast and sea. Another important types of trips are the city breaks and the cultural and heritage types of trip, which usually are on top no matter of the seasonality. And it's actually, the interest in these trips is very big still, and destinations actually should consider that, because if we don't prepare in time, we may get back to the overcrowding situation, which we actually don't want to reach once again. Coming back now to the coastal and sea experiences, among the 10 markets that we surveyed, it seems that UK, Germany, Austria, and France are travelers from these markets are actually most eager to plan a getaway somewhere across the sea, and either just for chilling on the beach, or do all of these coast and sea experiences, mainly including water activities. Cruising, we have just a few for the moment, but it's still okay, considering that there are almost none cruises going now. And in general, if we talk about preferences of destinations, people are looking really for these destinations at the coast, countries on the Iberian Peninsula, the Mediterranean regions. These are the biggest preferences, and in combinations with the preferred type of activities, which are sea and coastal and beach, this actually gives a very good outlook for the boating industry, for the recreational activities, compared, for instance, to other types of trips like traveling for events or specific gastronomy experiences and so on. And now I would also like to share with you some of the concerns that travelers have, because these are the things that ultimately will shape the trends over the next months. And now starting with, starting with the leading concerns for those who are most likely to travel. Europeans are still most concerned about getting quarantined during their trip, the rising cases of COVID in the destination they visit, or the opportunity of becoming ill while traveling are stressing out people the most. And at the same time, they're really tired of the constantly changing restrictions, opening and closing of borders, flight cancellations, procedures to get PCR tests in time, and so on. These are certainly factors that are impacting the desire for travel, and we should pay attention on that. And something new actually that came out recently is that now, as people are planning their summer vacations, they actually start wondering, will they be able to enjoy their trip in the destinations? Meaning that the COVID restrictions on activities available at the destinations are now raising worries among travelers, and it's a significant pain point, let's say. So here, this is also an opportunity for the boating industry, I think, because activities that are first of all available, perceived safety, and also give people the feeling of freedom and forget about the whole pandemic situation, will be actually very attractive for travelers. Another thing that is also worth mentioning is that are the worrisome touch points during a trip. Since the beginning of this research that we started in autumn, we continue seeing that air travel, and here I'm covering the whole period, like the stay at the airport, the stay at the airplane, are stressing out people the most in terms of their health. And then what we are seeing over the past months is also an increasing concerns about getting sick because of visiting food and beverage establishments. But yeah, service providers need to definitely highlight this in all of their campaigns, and protocols should be very clear. What is very important here is actually what I wanted to say. It's that the attractions and the tourist activities are perceived risky, but not as much as all of the other categories. So people are actually willing to dive again into the touristic lifestyle. And I must say that museums, for instance, museums mainly, they've done a great job in creating great systems for managing tourist flows, providing the right hygienic needs for everyone, and so on. So again, here the attractions shouldn't be the one that are perceived by the government as something that would be very risky and not used by tourists. And finally, regarding the most important factors, people would like to see destinations effectively managing COVID, and here it's also included. We are currently investigating actually that, but a lot of research is now showing that people will not only want to be vaccinated, but actually choose their destination on the basis of the percentage of people who are vaccinated in the country. So it's safer for them. The flexible cancellation policies are extremely important. What we've seen is that actually the flexible cancellation policies are much better than offering people deals, last minute deals, and so on. This is actually being overlooked by travel agents at the beginning of the crisis, but it's now, I assume it's already considered in the strategies. Pre-travel COVID tests certainly make people more confident before traveling. And then, of course, health and safety protocols, sharing them with travelers before going to a destination, during the destination. This would definitely make people more confident and wanting to travel more. So this was it. I hope I didn't speak too fast. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Ludmila. It was really interesting to hear what you had to say. And thank you for sort of building up a picture of what happened last year, the opportunities that your research has shown, and also the food for thought that you raised. I think that's really interesting. And also the sort of the challenges that you identified in terms of the consumer picture. And I think that's a lot for companies and also people on this call to understand what is important for consumers at this time. And I think a lot of what you said is very, very relevant there. I think overall what we can see, there's a lot of sort of cause for optimism, but also for our industry specifically. But now is a question of how will operators, how will tourism operators, how will policy, how will industry help facilitate that. So I think that's a lot of the questions that are raised from your presentations. So Ljubljana, thank you very much. Before introducing our next speaker, just to very briefly say that if you do have any questions, put them in the Q&A. There are already a lot of questions coming up, and we'll raise them after the next speaker. And the next speaker has a very enviable task of putting all of what has been said so far into perspective and say what that means for a company, in this case, the Veneto Group, which is, as many of you will know, is one of the largest boat builders in our industry at the global level. And we will hear from Luca Brancaleon, who is the Deputy General Manager at Group Veneto and responsible for brands and product strategy. So please, Luca, I look forward to hearing what you have to tell us. Over to you.
Okay, well, just at the beginning, if you can confirm you see properly my screen.
We can, yes.
Okay. Well, many things have been told, and I would say that in general, I mean, most of them are consistent with what we have seen and what is our prediction for the future. I would start saying that we keep very optimistic about the future, and some of the intervention, I mean, have really outlined what are the elements that we have to take in consideration for the future months to come. Obviously, I mean, I will give a quick outlook and a quick history of what happened through our eyes, but I think most of what I will say is a snapshot of the industry, and I think most of the other builders and suppliers that are around the table today will share what we are saying, what we are looking. So first of all, I mean, on COVID impact, I mean, as every business, I mean, we have impacted by the first wave and had to stop production for a while, and during the lockdown in France, and as a result, we had a delay in production. I mean, and this is back to something that has been also said. I mean, that some decision obviously impact and trigger a lot of consequences in other businesses and impact a lot of other people and businesses as well. The rebound in sales, I mean, due to people's reaction to COVID, has urged everybody in increasing production for the growing segments, mostly outboard boats for what is concerning. And I've seen that this is let's say, a global trend. Situation of today is still a strong request of product with long lead times for all manufacturers, very low inventories, strong rebound of the second-hand market too. And that's also a very good thing because there is also a better appreciation of the second-hand value, so which is always a very good thing for the people who are doing this business. On the expected timing for comeback of the market conditions pre-COVID, I mean, if we talk about figures, we can say market, I mean, is even stronger now than before COVID, although this is not across all the segments with the charter that is still suffering because of the impact on the travel. But I would say that there has been something that has been really boosted a lot. We would say the charter to be more local. I mean, charter companies in Germany, in UK, for example, the regions that historically, I mean, boaters have been traveling to Spain, Italy, Croatia, I mean, or other med coastlines, are now doing, I mean, more local activities, and I've seen actually an increase in their business lately. Charter demand is still very, very high. So, I mean, I join Ljubljana where it says that people want to travel. I mean, that's exactly the sentence that she was saying, and there is an improved sentiment, I mean, to travel. I mean, I'll look at that, and I perfectly agree with that. And as soon as the charter company are able to reopen the booking, I mean, immediately they have a very strong demand. Then it's another problem where they can actually host the people and host the customers. That's another very big issues that they have. So the market, I mean, as soon as the health situation will allow, I mean, I'm sure that the market will pick up promptly. I mean, obviously small and medium-sized charter might have been impacted heavily when they were focused only on that activity, because there are other businesses that are capable also to diversify. So they have certainly going through this period with a softer impact. I mean, there are other people who also manage a marina or run a boat dealership or have other businesses that can help them stay afloat. Looking at what Petros said at the beginning, I mean, physical meetings and boat shows, I mean, certainly the situation, I mean, COVID has pushed everybody. I mean, there was a big boost to digitalize our industry. And I've seen there is also a question in the chat, I mean, how we can actually digitalize our industry and the leisure activities. And I think there will be matter for discussion as well. But this has been educated, all of us in our direction, in that direction, that I think all of us have tested during the past 12 months that digital meetings are nothing but what is a physical meeting. So very difficult to replace them. We believe boat shows remain an important element of our business, and we feel confident that the autumn and fall boat shows will be maintained. And I think that also all these occasions, like the one that you're putting together, Philip, is a very strong and important possibility for all of us to gather together and exchange about all the matters that are impacting all of us. We do not have, obviously, to lose though the lessons we learned on digital, and keep growing a lot our offer in that direction. Regarding future trends, I mean, the need of freedom, obviously, spending time outside, the rediscovery of life being only one and short, obviously, it's been a great push to new boaters as well. I mean, a lot of newcomers. We have seen a lot of people this year starting to boating, but not only to have their boating license for the first time. We have seen people surfing, paddling, kayaking. I mean, whatever could give them the freedom to be outside in the nature and enjoy their time and life, I mean, has been boosted. So, and unfortunately, I mean, the lack of products has also pushed people to wait or to other activities. I mean, I would say that people are adapting fast. So we have seen people going to ski with no ski and doing other activities. And we have seen people going to the beach, doing something that they probably have never done before in their life. But there are also other activities that are booming. I mean, for example, I mean, boat clubs or boat sharing or syndicate or boat management. I mean, all kind of activities that are able to give the possibility with one product to have more than one people to enjoy it, then obviously are very welcome. I mean, these activities are very well known in some areas. In Europe, some of them are growing now. Like, I mean, boat clubs, for example, it's not in the European culture, but we have seen in any case a strong demand and an increasing demand. Then, I mean, I would say that in the future, I mean, our main message is to encourage the cooperation between all actors in the market, and to bring new opportunities for the user, to have, I mean, new opportunities that are also more dedicated to their needs. One of the usage of the digitalization would be very important to simplify the use, learning, but also to better understand the customer expectation and improve also the relation with the user, improve the experience. I mean, most of the people now, they want to try as many things as they could. So that's why, I mean, we really need to understand what they're really looking for and try to respect that and answer that. Us as a manufacturer, and I see obviously, and I really welcome that from all the other companies that are doing, I mean, we would like to have a more direct relation with the customers, always obviously respecting the current distribution process. This morning, I mean, I had a very early interview with the Nation magazine, and the advice that I gave to everybody was go to a professional. First thing, for a boater or for a potential boater, go to a professional and ask the right advice. And so, I mean, we all have all our manufacturers and suppliers. I mean, we have very good networks of dealer professional people. So we really needed to boost them, train them, help them with all the digital support we have in order to better respond to the market. We also need, obviously, to use the digital to understand better, how to respond and how to prepare the boaters before going to water. I think that having the customer at the center of our thinking and strategy, will be a key point for all of us in the future.
Thank you very much, Luca. That's really interesting to hear, and I think what you said really illustrates very well where a boat builder, but also the wider industry, is going in terms of the impact of COVID-19 and sort of taking advantage of all of these new trends that we have seen appear in the last couple of months. This very rapid development. I'm sure there'll be also a couple of questions to you, and that's why we now enter into the Q&A phases. So if you haven't yet put your question into the Q&A box, then please do so now, and we'll try and answer a few of those. Before then, we conclude with some final remarks from our president, Jean-Pierre Goudon. Mr. Ertug has let me know that he unfortunately had to leave the meeting, but he is available to answer any other questions also after the event. And we will, of course, stay in touch with him as well. So first of all, to answer some of the questions that were done on the EBI study that was done by Natasha and Amelie. There's a few questions to you, Amelie and Natasha, that I'll put to you. But just to say in general, the study will be released on the 27th of April and can then be downloaded from our website. At least the main key messages will be available for everyone to download, and the rest will be available for EBI members. Maybe so then a question to you, Amelie and Natasha. There was questions about which countries were mainly participating in this study. What other aspects did you study that you didn't maybe present today? Maybe you want to say something about that as well.
Yes, we have 13 countries who answered the study, and with over 20%, Spain, Germany, and France answered, and the other answers came from Italy, Finland, Poland, Belgium, and Portugal, and we have each answer per country for the Netherlands, Cyprus, Slovenia, Croatia, and Ireland. Okay,
fantastic. Maybe one additional question from my side. Were there any results from the study that surprised you? Anything that sort of popped up where you thought, wow, that's kind of interesting?
We have to point out that in every country we have positive and negative answers. We have a decline, companies with a decline and companies with an increase of revenues, for example. And Amelie, do you want to say something to France? Because I think there was also a question and she can point out some special information to show what we've done.
Yes, I think what was really special about the study is that we saw that the tourism industry really suffered. It was not just a feeling, but it was a fact. It is a fact, sorry. And we saw that the production sector especially had a profit with the coronavirus, because more people wanted to go boating, more people wanted to use nautical instruments to spend their time. So the production really benefited from the pandemic. When we looked at the numbers of France, we see that even though the production sector is really important in France, the revenue still decreased mostly. So the majority of companies saw a decrease, I think up to 70%. So it was really important. And that conducted to the fact that also a lot of people lost their employment. So the risk of losing their employment was higher in France than in other countries. For example, in Germany and in Finland, the numbers were quite good. More companies had to hire more staff. So we actually really saw differences in the countries. But even though the production sectors in France, important the companies had decreased. So that was a little bit incoherent.
Okay, thank you for that. There's also a question from Gert Dijks about the breakdown of companies, of the types of companies in the study. Maybe you can briefly say where you put different types of companies.
Yes, we ask about different types of companies. For example, we have split it up in charter and service companies, and we have also marina. And in other diagrams, we summed up them to tourism all in all. Then you can see in the survey different numbers for each sector and different numbers for each smaller sector, like marinas, for example.
Okay. Sorry, there's a question here to Luca Brancolio from Paul Johnson. When do you expect, and this is maybe a tricky question, but when do you expect the Veneto groups to offer electric propulsion as standards? What are the challenges that you see?
Well, I can confirm that there is a strong commitment in the electric propulsion development, and I can say this person that the wait won't be long.
Okay, that's a very open comment. Thank you very much, Luca. I think there was another question here from Felix Wolf, which is maybe also to Luca. You already alluded to it. He mentioned what the opinion of the World Economic Forum and its founder Klaus Schwab, that in 10 years people will own nothing anymore. Are you worried about that? That in 10 years no one will want to buy a boat anymore from the Veneto Group?
No, I'm not worried, but I am cooperated with a researcher that is preparing a study on the sharing economy of the future in many segments. And I see that is a very increasing trend in all kinds of businesses. I mean, and also regarding some products that I would never ever imagined in my life. So obviously, I mean, there is a trend going there, but I think that as of today, I mean, it's not enough to replace the ownership today. And in any way, I think that us, as all the other major groups in the industry, are also thinking to offer other type of usage other than just the ownership one.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here to you, Lublena. When is overseas travel expected to reopen without sort of a risk of quarantine for arrivals? Do you think that's possible this year, or do we have to wait until next year?
Well, I don't have a concrete answer to that, but since there is a big demand, especially from the US, for instance, a few destinations, including Greece and Iceland, for instance, they're preparing now some approaches to open their borders for American travelers. I don't think the procedures are finalized, but we were hoping to be able to welcome overseas travelers in almost late summer, but let's see if that's happening, because other regions are also building mechanisms, but as I said, they're not yet harmonized with the European mechanism, which has also not been implemented yet. So we are expecting the green certificate to be implemented hopefully by the end of June or mid-July, and from then onwards, there are steps that will follow with other world regions. It's really hard to say, because the moment we see some peaks, destinations are closing. It's a little bit still chaotic. So if somebody says that they have the answer, probably it's not gonna be 100% honest.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lublena, for that comment. I think, yeah, anyone who tries to predict the future is probably lying, especially now in these pandemic times. There was a question to EBI from Georgi Dobrev on the post-pandemic recovery and how the European boating industry foresees cooperation with other business sectors in the tourism industry. Maybe I can also try and respond to that at a sort of European level. And that is to say that also with the help of the European Travel Commission, we are working together with over 60 tourism and travel organizations. So that's everything from hospitality to airlines to many other areas, to identify common issues and see how we can tackle them together at the policy level. So that includes making concrete proposals for national recovery plans, demanding a stronger role of the European Commission in tourism policy, for example, on the digital green certificate that Ljubljana just mentioned. So all of those aspects we are very closely working together on. And I think at local level as well, a lot of this cooperation is also happening. Let me try and take a question that I wrote down beforehand. If Petros is still with us, he's got his video off, but I do have a question to Petros as well, if he is with us. Yes, I can see him. So the question I would have, Petros, you listened to all of these presentations and different elements of what was said. Is there anything that you take away for the board Düsseldorf 2022?
Yeah, I would like to point out again the, let's say, movement towards electric propulsion or new propulsion systems. This is a very interesting topic. I saw also some questions on the panel. It is, of course, our target to present the whole industry. What happens in the last years was that we had more and more producers not turning but enriching their products with alternative propulsion systems. Also hydrogen is a topic, hybrid is of course a topic. Some of the producers exhibiting with us will come in 2022 with new models, which will also widen the area of movement. Last year, I mean 2020, we had more than 50 companies showing new sustainable propulsion systems and new materials used for boating. And the demand is getting higher and higher. So what we will do next year is we will create we will not only present the products like we did all the years before, but we will create a forum to answer the questions of the boaters towards this movement, because the interest of the boater is very high. This is one point, but also from the production side, now we have to find ways to solve the demands, and it will be something which goes, of course, conform with the sustainability idea, not only of Europe, but of the world. And we are always coming up with the idea of keeping nature, climate, and of course our oceans clean. And this will be a step forward. And I believe that the industry will give us beautiful incentives, really new products, which will leave us, let's say, astonished in what is possible to have on the water. And so just I think this year will also be used for investing from the companies in these new models and new sustainable propulsion systems, and we will see them at Boat Düsseldorf.
Thank you very much, Petros. If there are, of course, any questions between the panelists, please don't let me stop you from asking those. But there are two more questions here to you, Luca. I'm sorry for overburdening you here with questions, but there's one question about the different patterns of boat buyers. That question is from Martino Fortunato. Is there a change in boat buying patterns? Is it different age groups? Is it different nationalities? Are you seeing any changes there?
Well, first of all, I would say that the positive answer is that the average age of the new boaters has gone a bit down. As you know, I mean, it's been a problem in the industry for quite some time, and this pandemic period, I mean, has helped in that direction. Then I would say that some other pattern, I mean, obviously people are getting more familiar with the digital meetings, etc. But obviously, I mean, I'm not going deeper in what the difference is between a digital meeting and a physical meeting, because we have all been through that in the past 12 months. But as you know, I mean, people are a lot less patient on digital instead of what they do usually queuing in front of a stand in a boat show. And we also have less opportunities to take care of them and to make their waiting time pleasant, looking for other things. So obviously, I mean, we need ourselves to be creative in the meantime, but I would say that we need also to have a much quicker reaction in terms of digital response to our customers, and make their response, I mean, really, really efficient.
Thank you, Luca. That's good to hear. Are there any questions between the panelists that anyone would like to raise? Are there any open questions? Yeah, that's very good then. I think
actually,
with that,
I have one.
Please, Amelie.
Sorry. Jublina said that 15.8%, I think, of people would like to go see cities in the future. Do you have a number how high the number was before, or a feeling maybe?
I have, yes. That was usually the city breaks are also very typical type of trips for Europeans, because everyone can jump to another country. I can check the results if you have 2 minutes, but usually this is the most preferred, the most popular type of trips when we get out the seasonal types of trips. So we always have city breaks and cultural breaks, trips with focus on culture on top. And then when we approach the winter months, we have winter activities on top. And then when spring starts, we are having an increased number of people wanting to go to the coast and to the sea and the beach. I can also share the results with you if you're interested. But for instance, last autumn, I think that was the top choice of travelers planning to travel.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was wondering if there was a difference between the numbers, because cities, I think, are also very impacted by the COVID virus.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think we are moving towards the end of our webinar here. And thank you very much for all the questions. There are way more than we could answer. We will try and take them away and respond to them individually if we can, and you will always have an open ear here at EBI for any questions you have. For some final remarks, I would like to hand over the floor to our president, Jean-Pierre Goudon. Jean-Pierre has been a president of EBI since 2019, and even before, he was vice president and treasurer for many years, and his career is even longer than that. He's been an automotive and marine engineer for many years, working for several international engine manufacturers, and at the French Federation of Nautical Industries, he spent more than 40 years in different leadership capacities. So Jean-Pierre, I'm sure you have a lot to say for us as final remarks. So over to you, Jean-Pierre.
Thank you very much, Philippe. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure listening to all speakers and learning the insight we have shared with you. I'm sure all the people waiting will join me in sincerely thanking them for having participated. However, the time has now come to do and to close the 6th International Breakfast Meeting. But before doing that, as President of European Boating Industry, I would like to share with you some of the activities we have been doing to represent the industry and our priorities. Firstly, EBI has been in touch with key policymakers in the EU to ensure our industry is present in key development. In March, the European Parliament released a report on sustainable tourism. I can proudly say that EBI played a key role in making sure the boating industry and nautical tourism were acknowledged in this report. As a result of our contact, the report outlines the role that nautical tourists can play in bringing about sustainable and resilient tourism. Specifically, the report mentioned the need to develop initiatives on to the regulation of skipper qualification, VAT rules on boat and marina, and promoting cross-border routes for nautical tourism. We are proud of this achievement, and we now call on national government and the Commission to implement the measures that are put forward in this report. Furthermore, at EBI, we have been advocating the implementation of reduced VAT rates for accommodation on marinas and on charter boats. We believe that there should be flexibility for countries to set reduced rates if they wish. This can help create a level playing field across the tourist sector. EBI has been actively engaging with policymakers in the EU institution and in national government to get across our position. And we will continue to defend the interests of our sector every day in the field of VAT. Finally, EBI is also active on cross-industry collaboration to defend nautical tourism. We are part of the European Tourist Manifesto, an alliance over 60 tourist-related organizations. This offers a unique platform for the tourist sector to have a single voice. Together, we make sure that tourism is at the forefront of the green and digital transition, and that it receives adequate funding to face the difficulty presented by the COVID-19 crisis. The European Tourist Manifesto Alliance has released several key papers over the last few months, including investment proposals to relaunch the tourist sector as part of national recovery plans funded by the EU. I'm happy to say that investment in our industry is featured prominently on this paper, and we call on national government to implement this proposal. We will continue to work closely with the Alliance to maximize our voice vis-à-vis policymakers in the EU. These are some examples of the way in which EBI has been actively defending the boating industry. Be in no doubt that we will continue to be at the forefront of European policy development, always seeking a positive role for our sector. And now, I would like to bring this international breakfast meeting to a close. I would like to thank Boot Düsseldorf, with which EBI has a very strong partnership. I would like to especially thank his project director, my friend Petros Mikelidakis. It's a pleasure every year to work with you, Petros, and your team to bring about the International Breakfast Meeting. And I'm very much looking forward to the 2022 edition. For the cancellation of this year Boot Düsseldorf, I'm sure we all feel a great excitement over the prospect of meeting physically at Boot Düsseldorf 2022. Thank you once again to all speakers and to all participants, and I hope to see you next January. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Pierre. And from my side, thank you very much to all the speakers, all the panelists, my colleagues, Roberto and Isola. And with that, I wish you a nice rest of the day, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.